Hello, everybody. This is Andrew Sherman of the MLBeers podcast here with Phillip Corwin today. Phillip, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well. How are you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing pretty well, even though I'm a bit under the weather because of allergy issues.
Oh yeah, this time of year though, man.
I know. Especially after cutting the grass, I thought it wouldn't be happening, but I digress. So anyways, we are here to talk about the West divisions today. Of course, Phil will be talking about the AL West, and I will be talking about the NL West. And I think right now we're somewhat surprised of what's going on in both divisions. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I'm not surprised on the AL West who's at the top of the division.
Oh,
but
me either. But
how it rounds out is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's kind of the same. It's really the same thing here in the NL West. Not really your traditional powers out in front right now. You have your Colorado Rockies and the Arizona Diamondbacks taking 1 and 2, respectively, while the Dodgers and the Giants kind of flounder. So it's very interesting. So before we get into that, we have a little bit of some headlines for you real quick. In articles that I thought were very interesting this week. The one major headline, though, is Jeb Bush and Derek Jeter They won the bid to buy the Marlins, and it was $1.3 billion. So, very, very interesting to hear that. Ugh.
Oh yeah. I wonder how involved Jeter's really going to be though.
Well, from my understanding, from what I've read, Bush will be the principal owner of the team, and Derek Jeter will be a special advisor. So kind of think of it as Jeb Bush being president of the United States as Trump, and then you go with Derek Jeter as being Steve Bannon in a way. You know Trump is there. He's the president, but Steve Bannon is actually running the inner workings like Jeter will.
It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see how their player development goes, and if they can get attendance and see kind of what kind of money they're going to bring in, what kind of money they're going to spend.
I think they're going to spend a lot on player development, and I don't think they're going to spend a lot on their players. Well, bringing in players. I think they're going to stay away from free agency unless they need to. I mean, you already have Giancarlo Stanton for a 10-year deal, which he's already on his third, I believe, of the deal, or second of the deal. Then you still control Yelich and Ozuna, so...
Oh, yeah, and their catcher, JT Realmuto, it's doing really well as well.
Exactly. So that's really... Well, what were you going to say? Sorry for interrupting.
How many years does D. Gordon have left there?
I have not checked in a while, but I know it was a nice... I know he's not a free agent this year, but I'm probably expecting within the 2 years he'll be a free agent without looking it up and all that stuff. So, with that, that is pretty much the headline, the interesting article that I read. I have two, but we'll keep one for later for our lovely beer segment. But the article that I read was a Fangraphs article. I can't remember who the author was, but it was New Generation Ballparks Are Pushing Us Away. And it was and why it was so interesting and about the article is that you have these you have the second and third decks of these stadiums that are 90 plus feet away from the field, and it's kind of a give or take because it's a structural thing because they don't want to do an overhang or they have to put up beams to hold it up structurally, which then becomes an obstacle for anybody that's in the lower bowl, but it also gives you that nice intimate feeling instead of being wide away from the stadiums. And it was just really, really interesting to read. Of course, we'll post that on the website and and Twitter and Facebook on those. those two articles and the third one that I will be talking about later. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Uh, no, I just did want to reference the author is Travis Salchik.
Okay, thank you. Because I was just writing that down real quick, and trying to just write down the title and just get it done with it. But anyways,
Oh yeah.
since that is everything, let's get started, shall we? So the AL West, really, you could say it's pretty much a tie between the two of the wildness out of it. Of course, we brought up that the Houston Astros are the first place team, but then you have, I believe, the Oakland Athletics as the second, and then it's just like the Angels and Rangers.
Rangers and Mariners.
Mariners.
Which I didn't see the Mariners rounding out the bottom.
Me either. I think, if I remember correctly, they were going to be my team that would sneak into the playoffs, into the wild card game.
I think that's what both of our assessments were of them. But I'm pretty sure they lost their pitcher Wade Miley, right?
I believe so.
Which has really hurt their starting pitching overall. And then I think I just saw Felix Hernandez went on a 10-day DL as well.
Ooh, that's not good. That's not good.
Well, yeah, because yesterday the Seattle Mariners lost 9-19.
Oof.
The first game at Detroit.
First game one of I'm guessing 2 or 3 game series.
3-game series.
And that's not good.
Well, the game before that, 23rd, the A's, they won 11-1. But you somehow got a good performance out of Gallardo.
Well, and also it's the A's too, which I know I like my A's, but I can't, some games you can't win them all, right?
Well, Mariners only took 1 of 4 against Oakland.
Ugh.
And I think of the last 10, they're 500, 5-5.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not really improving their record, but they're not doing anything to really lose their record either. They're just kind of holding steady.
Gotcha.
Because it looks like they got swept twice already this season.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit of struggles from them. And then if we're looking at their batting, they're getting a really good performance out of the rookie Mitch Hanger, which for some reason he was in neither one of ours Rookie of the Year discussion.
I think he's just he was a bit underneath the radar because he was with the Mariners, and I believe he's an outfielder, correct?
Yeah, and he's coming in at 26 years old.
Yeah, so you really don't think of your Rookie of the Years to be the 26-year-olds. You expect them to be your 21 through 24-year-olds, if I'm correct.
Yeah. And, he's coming in, he has 21 games, 95 plate appearances, which is second most on the team. But he's coming in with 4 home runs, a 338 average, 442 on base, 600 slugging, and a 200 WRC plus. And he's tied in the West with a 1.5 WAR with Mike Trout.
Now that ain't bad. That ain't bad at all, especially
No.
in the AL West with Mr. Trout, as you said. So if I can talk today, of course we're talking about the Seattle Mariners. Do I have any questions about the Mariners, or do you have any more to say about the Mariners?
Well, their starting pitching is what's struggling. They got James Paxton, which seems to be a favorite among one of the groups we participate in. And he's coming in pitching really well. 32.8% K rate, 31 innings, a 1.45 ERA, 1.7 WAR, and an 80% left on base, which isn't even the best on the starting rotation. But the rest of the starting rotations, they all have above 4 ERAs, with Iwakuma coming in at a 5.31.
Ooh, and he's supposed to be the good number 2 out of that team.
Yep, and Felix Hernandez, King Felix, struggling mightily right now with an 18.6% K rate and a 4.73 ERA and a 388 BABIP.
Yeah, that does not sound good for him. And usually he does. I mean, he usually does well, and I think the last time I watched the Mariners play was against the Marlins, and he was doing pretty well. I think he was in the 80 pitch range in the fifth, maybe sixth, if I remember correctly, and I think he pitched 6 2/3 of that game, and then it was just all to the bullpen. But by that time, Seattle was killing the Marlins.
And their bullpen's ERA is what hurting them right now. But they do have one guy, Chris Heston, who pitched 2 innings but has a 22.5 ERA, and the bullpen's ERA is coming at a 6.52 with an only 62.4% left on base.
That's not bad. That's not bad. Well, it actually is bad.
Yeah, I would say that's not good.
That's not good. Yeah, I was just right now. These allergies are really getting to me. So, so I'm hearing everything, but sometimes I get my numbers mixed up. But that happens. But anyway, for these Mariners though, is there going to be a bounce back? We're 20 plus games out now, and they're in the cellar of this division that's supposed to really be Rangers, Astros, and Mariners, but they're in last. So what is something that is going to be done for these Mariners?
Well, most glaringly, their overall pitching staff has to improve.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a 6.52 bullpen ERA and a 3.94 starting pitching ERA, which 3.94 is really not that bad for starting pitching, but with injuries to Hernandez, and then they lost one of the other guys, Wade Miley, they need at least one or two other guys to be able to spot start and to help fill the gaps and not overload the bullpen with runners on base when they have to come in the fifth or sixth inning.
Exactly. And I'm just looking at the overall ERA for the past 7 days. And the Mariners are 30th with a 7.38. So,
see, oh yeah, that just goes back to when they had a 19-run game just yesterday.
Just already just putting up those high numbers, which is really bad for them.
But they're getting really good home run numbers out of guys. We talked about Hanger. Cruz has 5. Motter has 5. Robinson Cano only has 3. So they have 23 home runs as a team, but they're also hitting 249 with a 334 on base, and as a team they have a 114 WRC plus. So it doesn't seem like scoring runs is a problem. It's the pitching not being able to hold it down.
Well, that's understandable because looking back at all the World Series teams or playoff teams, you have to really, everybody was all cylinders. All the cylinders were going. No mishaps.
Oh yeah, and that's what they're gonna have to do. Even to sneak into the wild card is that they got to just overall just get guys to pitch better. And it's a common theme in baseball. You got to pitch and you got to hit. And if you're doing one and not the other, you're still gonna lose.
Exactly. So, if that is everything from you, I've already asked my question. Who's the next team up?
I'm going to work from the bottom up. So,
okay.
Mariners, then Rangers.
Alrighty.
And, the Rangers are coming off. They lost the last 2 games, but before that, they swept the Royals, where each team kind of struggled to score runs in that 4-game sweep. Just in that 4-game sweep, they scored just 14 runs, but they only allowed 5 runs that whole series. And the first win of the game on the 20th was a 1-0 win.
Didn't that game go into extras, or was that a different?
Extras? Yes, it did.
Yeah.
And then the last 2 games against the Twins, they've only scored 3 runs as they've let up 11. So it's kind of night and day with them. And it's looking like, again, it's their starting pitching and their hitting combined, which is a common theme for the teams in the bottom of their division, is they're doing both things terribly. They're not pitching well. Their starting pitching is getting either overworked or overstrained because they feel like they have to pick up the slack for the offense.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you overwork and you overthink it, and a lot in baseball is you're going to start letting up runs unnecessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And just looking at one of their top hitters, or one of their should-be top hitters, Rougned
Mm-hmm.
who's coming in at a 190 batting average
Ooh.
and a 55 WRC plus and only 227 on base
Mm-hmm.
and a 203 BABIP. So he's not hitting the ball. Sin-Shu Chu isn't really hitting either. Delino DeShields is not doing well. Jonathan Rookroy is only hitting 196. The guys that they kind of got a flash in the pan with Robinson Chirinos.
Uh-huh.
He's coming in with only 24 plate appearances, but he's hitting 404 home runs.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, he's a guy
Catcher.
out of their farm system too, if I remember correctly.
And Joey Gallo is getting, he's had 22 games, 80 plate appearances, 7 home runs, and a 224 average. But that's kind of what his average is, what you expect from him.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of articles about Joey Gallo's and how he really hasn't lived up to his hype. Even though he finally has the starting job, he still hasn't lived up to his hype.
As of right now, he's still coming in with a 1.2 WAR. And Mike Trout and Mick Hanger are only at 1.5. So
things will turn around, of course.
Oh yeah, and it depends if his average keeps dipping lower, and his home run numbers don't stay up. Then obviously he can't maintain that pace. He needs to hit that 230 to 250 average with high home run numbers to stay relevant.
Mm-hmm. You said something about their pitching, correct? And
Yeah.
I do see that. I'm looking at the injury report real quick, and I had to see if I remember correctly, with one of the players. But I see that 2 are actually on the DL at the moment, Sam Dyson, and Sam Dyson being one of their relief pitchers, and then Tyson Ross being their starting pitchers. And I know that of course they're both good players, but I just know that really really hinders it with only having 2 really good pitchers great pitchers almost, with Yu Darvish and Cole Hamels.
But if you look at Martin Perez, he's coming in with 26 innings and a 3.81 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
And then even Andrew Kashner, ex-Padre player coming over to the AL, he has an 86.2% left on base and a 2.93 ERA. The only guy on the staff that actually has a above 4 ERA is AJ Griffin. And Yu Darvish is coming at a 3.03, and Cole Hamels is a 2.97. And as a starting rotation, their ERA is only 3.20.
I'm just trying to look at their pitching real quick on their.
And you're talking about Sam Dyson heading to the DL. He has 4.1 innings pitched, but a 27 ERA.
There you go. Well, 7.20 ERA.
No, a 27.
Okay. I was like, oh my God, he has a 7.20. See, again, it's these allergies making me hear other things than what I really need to hear. And also, what's interesting too, with Tyson Ross being out and Sam Dyson also being out, both on the 10-day DL, is that combined last week they had a 3.14 ERA with a fielding independent pitching of 4.02. And another guy that I didn't think that was on the DL and excuse me, that was on the DL and pretty surprising is Adrian Beltre. I heard that he had some calf muscles issues in spring training, but it actually is finally, I guess, showing up during the season. I mean, again, we're only 20 games in, and he's already on the 10-day DL. And I mean, there's a lot of people on the 10-day DL.
I was going to say that 10-day DL seems pretty convenient right now.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's a good way for one. Maybe he wasn't all the way hurt, but it gives him a good chance to actually rest up without taking up a roster space.
Yes, and I will have to agree with you on that because looking at the again, I still have the injury reports up that a lot of these players, a lot of these teams are using the 10-day DL. And I mean, for pitchers it's just really 2 starts and that's it. For I mean, and of course 10 games, maybe 7 or 8 depending on your position as a in the field, but that's really pretty much it with that. So I mean,
Yep.
that's pretty good for. I mean, that's a pretty good thing to have. But I think Adrian Beltre, he has something that some of the players don't. Of course, I don't have the lineups right in front of me, but currently, who's playing third base?
I'm bringing up their depth chart right now, and it
Okay.
looks like third base is uh oh no, this is just telling me playing time.
Yay. Is that
Uh,
Fangraphs?
yeah,
Good old
yeah.
Fangraphs.
It's looking like
There we go.
between third base, uh, Joey Gallo has 21 games started at third base.
Ooh, I was not expecting that. I was expecting more at first, but then,
Mike Napoli's at first at was 17.
yeah, now I'm looking at the depth chart. Let me see if I can look at it differently from what. Okay, here we go. This is what I'm talking about. Yeah, oh, it's showing last year's numbers. I hate when they show last year's numbers because it's just like, you because like right now it says Adrian Beltre has like 500 plate appearances, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
that's not what I'm wanting. Uh, Fangraphs again, Fangraphs failing me again, but it could be different. Anyway, so besides that, it's almost kind of the same question. Really thinking about it, it's kind of almost the same question with the Mariners. Is this just something that they're not going to see for? They're just going to be having a lull for a while until their pitching starts coming up, or is that just going to be something that we're going to see all year?
I don't think it's something we're going to see all year, just because of right now where the starting pitching is at compared to the Mariners. They're coming in with a 3.18 total staff, total starting pitching ERA,
Mm-hmm.
and a 4.88 bullpen ERA, which
Mm-hmm.
both are pretty good. And guys like Odor, Chu, and Luke Roy, you expect them to at least start picking up their hitting because Luke Roy is a good offensive catcher, also a good defensive catcher, but his offense numbers tend to be a little bit higher than most offensive catchers in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw what Odor did last year, and so I don't expect guys like those bottom 3 guys to keep producing like they are now.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting is Carlos Gomez. When he signed with them last year, and he was able to do what he did. This year, he's coming in with 94 plate appearances with only a 207 batting average and no stolen bases and only 3 home runs.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting.
But
So
besides that, that's Texas Rangers. I still see them turning it around and being able to compete for that second or pretty much that second spot in the West.
hmm So now, with that, I'm guessing it's the Angels next out of the
Yep.
standings.
Yes, sir. And of their last 10 games or so, they've gone 4-6. They really haven't let up a lot of runs, but they necessarily haven't scored a lot either. They've scored 7 in their most, but they lost 7-8. It looks like they're averaging just about 2 to 3 runs a game right now, which in baseball that's not terrible,
Mm-hmm.
but
Could be
when
much better.
it could be much better, exactly. And looking at their starting pitching, I know they've had some troubles with Garrett Richards and Matt Shoemaker. Like Matt Shoemaker's coming in with a 4.98 ERA. Garrett Richards has only been able to start 1 game this year, and he only pitched 4.2 innings. And when you're missing, and Garrett Richards is kind of supposed to be their ace of the state staff.
Yeah, I could say a lot of things about ace of the staff, but I mean, again, there's kind of no ace in the staff. I mean, just looking at the estimated playing time from from Fangraphs, they have Shoemaker with 20%, but of course that's a bit different than that. And I think let's take a I was about to say Shoemaker's injured, but he isn't. But he, out of the 4 games, if it will show me real quick, out of the 4 games though, he has an ERA of a 4.98, and
yep. Then you go up to Ricky Nolasco. He has an ERA of 4 starts, 22 innings, 4.76. Then they have another guy, Jesse Chavez, who's pitched 4 games, 3.13 ERA. Tyler Skaggs, 4.44 ERA. J.C. Ramirez, 4.15 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
Which, to me, that's kind of surprising that they're 10 and 12 right now. But that's in large part to their offense.
Mm-hmm.
You got a guy like Mike Trout who's already hit 6 home runs, but a 3.46 ERA.
Yes.
ERA, average. Sorry.
Uh-huh. I mean, that's okay if he has a 3.46 ERA. I know that they'll need it, so it's a win at the end, right?
Yes. But if you look at the rest of their hitters, they're pretty much all struggling except for Andrentel Simmons.
Uh-huh.
He's coming with a 2.99 ERA, 3 home runs, 2 stolen bases, and a 1.36 WRC plus. And Mike Trout coming at a 2.14 WRC plus. Those are the only 2 players above the average of WRC plus. The rest are below it.
Yeah, and I see. And what's really interesting too is that even though this guy doesn't have as much plate appearances as your Mike Trout and Aldrin Simmons, Martin Maldonado, he's hitting a 387 with a 2. I mean, his BABIP's is 387, but then his average is 250, and this allergy is really, really messing me up this week.
You gotta get some of that nasal spray, man.
I guess I need to. But then again, if I do that, I hope I don't get in trouble by the MLB and get an 80-day suspension. But 80-game suspension and no playoffs.
Hey, I fully encourage PED use on this podcast. Just for the host, not for actual players.
Not for actual players and or guests. Guests, you have to come in whenever we start having guests one of these days. But anyway, I was just like, oh wait, why aren't you talking about Martin Maldonado? But then it's like, oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing. But you are right. Everybody else is just floundering. I mean, UNL Escobar is hitting a 250, but he's at 85 weighted runs created plus. And then but the one good thing out of this is he's kind of the only one that's striking out, the least with 11% K rate, but also he's not walking as much either.
You look at a guy like Danny Espinosa. He's second in the team in home runs, but he's only walking pretty much 5% of the time, striking out 37% of the time, hitting 189, and has a 67 WRC plus.
Mm-hmm.
So it's either, for him, it looks like it's hit or miss. Either he's going to hit a home run or strike out.
Which I think they kind of had him as that too with the Nationals, but he's a much better player than
a 189.
A 189. But of course he's not going to be like Daniel Murphy where he is this great hitter but really bad defender.
No.
So
he's solid over there at second base. So he has a little bit of worth over there, but again, defense is not valued as much anymore. You want to be able to produce at the plate, and he's almost doing that.
Okay, so my question is, if that is everything that you wanted to say, my question is, with this team being 10-12, which is still really interesting, and a 18.8% chance of getting into the playoffs, and of course it's always never too early to talk about playoff baseball. Do you think that if they still keep on this track and we're looking near 500, they just keep on playing the same way, looking 500 near the trade deadline, which is really far out. First of all, I guess my first question is, are they going to keep playing like this until the trade deadline? And then the second thing is, do you see them trading Mike Trout for a couple of pitchers to get into to possibly get into the playoffs, or just not see Mike Trout going anywhere and they get, I guess, second or third hand pitchers?
That's more I see them. I see them kind of maintaining this, teetering the line of 500, maybe getting a couple games above it, falling a couple games below it, kind of maintaining that Mendoza line of 500. But I don't ever see Mike Trout getting traded from the Angels. I just don't. I just don't see him. I just don't see the Angels organization as a whole be willing to get rid of a guy like that.
Mm-hmm. And it's always difficult for them to do that, especially with a guy like Trout, somebody that's really, really special to this organization. And
oh yeah, and the best player in baseball. Like you gotta put yourself in the fan situation. Like how would you feel if they traded a 25-year-old Mike Trout away?
Exactly. And it'll just be really hard for them to do that, to get really great pitching, because I mean, it's kind of looking at actually your second team at the moment.
Who would have the pitching to trade for Mike Trout?
Exactly. And also, this is kind of not a segue to the Athletics in a way, but still you get to answer the questions, is that, Mike Trout, if a trade does happen like that, you have to look at the Oakland Athletics in 2014, giving up Cespedes and that really, really crazy offense that was putting up 6+ runs per night, and hell, they even had a chance to possibly break the win record for that year. Well, of course, being first, but also probably breaking the most wins in the entire, I guess, the entire MLB organization, whatever I'm trying to say, of all time. That's what I'm trying to say, the win record of all time. And they get to the playoffs by wild card because they do that trade to get Lester and Samardzija, and it just faltered. It didn't work out, and history, and the rest is history. So that's where it's kind of teetering in a way. Is it really the right thing to do, or is it just blah? So
yeah, I think at this point they don't want to trade Mike Trout. He, for one, sells tickets to the game. He's the type of guy you want to go see every day and play, because he's that kind of exciting baseball player, and he's the face of the franchise. And you got to think about, like, are they competing for a second wild card spot? If that's the case, you don't trade Mike Trout. You want Mike Trout on your team for that.
Yeah, especially not even just for a second, just for the first. And
yeah,
I mean,
he's the type of guy that can be he's an overall game changer, and you just don't want to take the risk of not having him on your team to maybe get two pitchers who will hopefully give you 6 to 8 good innings.
Yeah, exactly. And with Mike Trout being so well, I mean, who's really the team to get him and is willing to give up pretty much their entire staff just for him? And I know we brought up earlier in this, not in this podcast, but earlier this season, where I think I've told you either on or off the recording that how is it possible for Mike Trout to go to the Yankees when they pretty much have to give up every prospect that just came up? Gary Sanchez, Aaron Judge, and Gilberto Torres, if I'm saying that correct, or just in this way, CC Sabathia, Masahiro Tanaka, and Luis Severino. Like, are they willing to do that and just really demolish that
Sell out?
team?
No,
Yeah, there's just no
because
way for that to happen.
because that you trade off those many players, you're not going to be winning any more ball games. All you get to say is like, look, we have Mike Trout.
Yeah, exactly. And you get those ticket sales, which when you brought that up, I was like, Mike Trout is bringing in the ticket sales, but right now, Albert Pujols is only 5-6 away from reaching that 600 home run mark. So I'm pretty sure everybody's
Gearing up to be there. Yeah,
gearing up to be there. But right now, it doesn't even look like Pujols. I mean,
can do
Pujols will get the 600 because he's hitting 2 home runs. So expect a home run per 20 games. I mean, per 10 games right now. That's how it looks like. He only has 2 home runs at the moment. There's been 22 games with the Angels. So expect it, I guess, to be 11 games for each home run. But there'll be moments where either somebody does want to be the guy that pitched him, that groove one in for him, or just to actually take him out. And thank the Lord. It would be cool for St. Louis to kind of give up the home run, but then again, it would be dumb. And I don't think they play this year.
No, I don't think the West is playing this. Well, maybe. I don't know what the interleague schedule is this year because I'm pretty sure they are because I think the Royals are playing the Dodgers this year.
Which is actually pretty cool because I've actually seen the Royals play the Dodgers at Kauffman, and it was cool. Hold on one second. So I'm taking a gander at their schedule real quick, and it doesn't look like they are this year.
Oh, okay.
So,
like I said, I don't know the NLs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's West versus West this year. So,
okay. All right. So, do you have any more questions about the good old Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim?
Oh God, that disgusting name. Or I like to say the Los Angeles Dodgers of Los Angeles, just to piss people off. That's how I roll. But anyways, no, I don't have anything for the Orange County Angels or the California Angels, which I believe that the Angels should be still called the California Angels because of Field of Dreams, which is my favorite baseball movie. But I digress. So anyways, like I brought up earlier, kind of as a segue, we have my team that I'm fond of, the lovely, wish they go back to Kelly Green, Oakland Athletics.
And just looking at their past about 10 games, they had a nice 5-game winning streak, 2 against Texas and then 3 against Seattle. But they lost the last game against Seattle, winning that series 4-1. But then they turned around and lost to the Angels last night as well, 1-2. Game before that, they lost 1-11. So it looks like at least the last 2 games, offense is a little bit fluttering, not scoring as much. I think they're coming in at a record of flat out 500.
Yes, they're at 10-10. With 3.5 games back from the Astros, as on says, per Fangraphs.
Yes, and looking at their starting rotation, they have guys like Jarrell Cotton, Sean Manaea, Andrew Triggs, Jesse Hahn, and Cesar Valdez and Kendall Graveman.
Kendall Graveman. And what sucks at the moment is they don't have Sonny Gray because he's injured at the moment. He's currently on the 10-day DL list for back issues, but I think he had hand issues before the season started too. So.
As I say, during spring training, he got shut down as well. So, be interesting to see if maybe he can get fully recovered and come back and help the pitching staff. Because between Andrew Triggs coming at a 2.42 ERA, Jesse Hahn has a 1.80, but then you get into Sean Manaea and Jarrell Cotton, who have a 4.43, a 4.76, and then Kendall Graveman's coming in at a flat 2.
Which, that's kind of a good thing because he was designated as the number 2 man, and he's actually putting up, ace numbers while Gray is gone. So.
Oh, yeah. And, he's only pitched 18 innings, though. So he's not pitching deep in the games like. Well, I guess in 3 games. Never mind. He hasn't started his 4th game yet. So
Not
no, it
yet.
looks like he's
Not
going
yet.
he's going in deepest because the rest of the starters have 22 innings pitched
Mm.
in 4 games, but Jesse Hahn does have 20 pitched in 3, and he's coming in at their best with a 1.80 ERA and a 3.09 fielding independent.
Which is, I mean, really good for Jesse Hahn because
Oh
he
yeah,
was he
that's
was
something you don't expect that from a Jesse Hahn.
because he was actually expected to be the third, fourth starter, maybe fifth starter, because of course you have Sean Mejia, Manea, and then Andrew Triggs came really out of nowhere. Jarrell Cotton actually coming up through the system, even though I did learn that he was a Dodger trade for one of their players, for one of a player that I can't think of. But anyways, he finally came up. But Jesse Hahn has really helped this staff too. Again, like you said 20 innings pitched. Currently, I have in front of me from Fangraphs 26 with a 2.08 ERA.
Oh, I'm on Fangraphs too, and they're telling me 3 games. Okay.
3 games. No, that's not. You're
Oh,
right. You're right. But
oh,
26 innings.
they're telling me Jesse Hahn 20 innings and 180.
Well, I think Fangraphs is somehow messing with me, or somebody doesn't like West Coast baseball. Because earlier today, I was looking at the Dodgers stats, and in their pitching, they didn't have a 10th guy. It was blank. And then Kike Hernandez's name was all screwed up using copyright symbols and capital A's and all that stuff, which it no way, shape, or form Kike has an A in it. It's Kike, so. But then again, but anyway, I posted it on Twitter and tagged him in it. So hopefully I'll
Oh,
get an answer back one of these days.
let's hope so. But looking at their hitting, you got Chris Davis, which he's hitting 7 home runs, but he's only striking out 26.9% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But he's hitting a 273 average.
Mm-hmm.
So with that high of home runs, I know it's not Eric Thames numbers, but he's coming in with 7 home runs and not hitting 224.
And again, Chris Davis really is, kind of out of the blue, because if you really think about it, even though he has a 273 batting average and 7 home runs, you also have to think about the team as a whole too, because really everybody doubted the Athletics, automatically put him in the cellar, and I even did that too. And they have this Chris Davis, this guy just hitting home runs, and nobody is talking about him, even though he's probably third or fourth in the home run list.
Yeah, but if you're looking at the rest of their guys, though, they got a Ryan Healy, 260, Marcus Semien, a 171. The guy they went out and got, Rajay Davis, coming in at 214, 1 home run, 1 stolen base.
And what's another really interesting thing? Rajay Davis is supposed to be their on base guy.
Yeah, and he's coming in at 262 on base.
Exactly.
And he's only walking 6.6% of the time. So, but I know I did bring up Marcus Semien, who has a 171 average, but he turns around and has a 370 on base percentage.
And what also helps is that he has a 21.7 walk rate while having a 23.9 strikeout rate. So, I mean, win-win right there.
Right? So, but do I expect the Athletics to keep maintaining the second spot of the division? No.
Of course, that was going to be my first question.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I saw it. I saw the look in your face.
I saw the look in your eyes.
They're telling me that the Athletics aren't going to be able to maintain that second spot in the division.
So
it's just
well, we finish your statement. I'm always getting in the way of you talking.
It's just looking at their overall relief pitching, and if Sonny Gray can come back and produce for them, then maybe. But they got to get their bats up. They're only batting a 235 with a 303 on base. But they do have a bunch of guys above the 100 mark of the WRC plus, though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they're able to looks like they're able to score runs, and they don't have any guys in negative WAR either.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as a team, as they're batting, they have a 2.2 WAR.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it possible? Yes, it'd be an oddball because you don't have the big superstar names. You have Chris Davis, you have Trevor Plouffe,
Uh-huh.
an old Twins player, Adam Rosales, Jed Lowry. You don't have those high profile type names. So,
I mean, if they switch that in Chris Davis's name, if they switch that K to a C, then great. They might have a star in that.
right?
No.
No, and so it'd be interesting to see because they are getting good production on Andrew Chiggs and Hahn,
Mm.
and then Sean Manaea and Jarrell Cotton. They're both young players. I think this is only their first or second. At least Cotton, this is his first year in the league. I know Manaea came up last year a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So they have the prospects. They have the I guess prospects and projection to do well. It's just right now I don't seem to be able to maintain it.
Mm-hmm. So we're expecting that the Athletics go back down, and I will have to agree with you on this, and it's just because it's out of the blue, and the reason why I say that is because if you don't expect the Rangers or the Mariners to do it, but then again, like with the Mariners, they have a really good lineup. And I know that I'm bringing it back all the way to our first team. But, okay, Mariners. When you think of the Mariners, you have Robinson Cano and Nelson Cruz when you think of the guys on that team. Then once you think of the Rangers, you think of Rodon Odor because he punched Joey Bats in the face. But also a little bit of Jonathan Luke Roy and Yu Darvish and Cole Hamels. When it comes to the Angels, Mike Trout and Albert Pujols in a way. But like you said, and I'm just reaffirming that when you think of the Athletics,
You don't really think of a single player.
Unless the single player that you would think of is probably Sonny Gray, but he's not doing anything because he's injured, and everybody else is, under the radar because they're not expected to do well.
Exactly. So, if they do well, it's always fun to see an interesting story like that in baseball. And it's completely possible. As of right now, they have guys that are hitting well, hitting home runs. They stole 7 bases as a team. Mm-hmm. So they're only striking out as a team 23% of the time. So, and they have a positive WRC plus and a positive WAR. So for the guys that are struggling, they're struggling, but the guys that are doing average, and they got one guy doing above average.
Exactly.
So,
and also another thing too, they're floating on the bottom, near the top of the bottom half of the league when it comes to certain stats. Like they range from 15 to 20. Like I'm looking right now, this is just an anomaly, but their BABIP is a 274, but that's 24th. But then you look at the Cardinals with a 283, and they're kind of in the same boat. I mean, hell, look at even at the Indians. They were doing so well, but it's a 282 and they're 18th, and they're still first in their division, if I'm correct. So, well, no,
they're not. They're second. They're tied for second.
See again, the allergies, and automatically assuming that the teams that I chose to be in the playoffs are automatically in first. So I digress. So, anyways, after that, one team is left, and the team that we chose to represent the AL West is actually doing what they're supposed to do. The Houston Astros,
coming in at 7-3 of their last 10 games. So that's always coming off positive win streak. They, as a team, they're hitting 266, have a 338 on base, 418 slugging. 116 WRC plus. They're only striking out 19% of the time. They have a 302 BABIP, 26 home runs, 12 stolen bases.
That is not bad at all.
No, and the surprising players that are struggling is you got a Carlos Correa coming in at 217, and then you got George Springer. But the difference between George Springer and Carlos Correa, Springer has 7 home runs and a 213 average.
But also, this is just a little quick thing too, is that Correa was out for at least 5 to 6 games because he was injured. I can't remember if it was his hand injury, but I know that
Correa's played 18 and Springer's played 19.
So, and 79 played it. Well, he's finally getting in, but yeah. I understand where this is coming from, but anyway, but with that, again, like you said, just looking at, just as a team total, 266 batting average, a 302 BABIP, which, of course, if you want anything, if that's what you want to be over 300 for, that's a good thing. Their slug is a 418, and their on-base percentage is a 388. And, looking at those numbers, that 268 batting average, that is fourth in the MLB. BABIP is eighth, but also you're really closing the gap because besides the Diamondbacks, which I'll talk about later, and the Rockies, I mean, man. Anyway, from eighth to sixth and a little bit of fifth, there's that nice little 9-point swing. So, I mean, anybody that hits really good one day could really change that. Then their on-base percentage, let me look at that real quick. They're third in on-base percentage, and then slugging, they are eighth. So, and also again,
so they're pretty much a top 10 team in about all the important team categories. And they're getting good projected out, of course, out of Jose Altuve coming in at a 312. And actually, you're gonna have to say his name for me. Came over from Cuba.
Oh, the Ulesky Gurriel?
Yep. Yeah. He's leading the team with a 344 average and has a home run. He's only striking out 10% of the time. Granted, he's not walking much either, but he still has a 364 on base, a 139 WRC plus.
Yeah, his walk rate looks like my percentage of getting a girl that's on a scale that is a 10 on the 1 to 10 scale. It's 10 being legendary. I mean, 1.5% walk rate. That's really poor. And I mean, of course, you kind of have to look away from the other numbers like Mike Fryer's, Tony Sipp, because those are their pitchers. So you don't expect anything out of them. But like the lowest guy besides him is Carlos Beltran.
Josh Reddick.
And Josh Reddick. I mean, with that 6%.
Coming in at 6%.
And then Carlos Beltran at 3.7. But again, if you look at Carlos Beltran, he is not really hitting the ball either with a 231 average.
And only 2 home runs and a 268 on base.
Exactly.
And, we can just quick hit it. Their starting pitching's doing well. Dallas Keuchel's returning to his 2013, 2014 form, 122 ERA. As a staff, they have a 379. And then the relief pitchers, they have a 75.4% left on base and a 280 ERA and a 263 fielded independent.
Mm-hmm. And what's another interesting thing, you do bring up their relieving, and like when you think of the relief staff, you think of Ken Giles and Luke Gregerson, which even though they're decent relieving, you have those two big guys at 5 and 5.79 ERA respectively.
And then you have Chris Devnitsky coming in with 14 innings pitched and a 126 ERA.
See, there
and a
you go.
And a 100% left on base.
There you go. And so, and did you just say Will Harris too? Because I was just going to say Will Harris has a 1.13 ERA. So instead of looking at the normal guys from Giles and Gregerson, they've looked at Devinsky and Harris, and you can also say too for Brad Peacock, because he has a 0 ERA and he's thrown
9 innings.
Yeah, 9 innings. And then Michael Feliz, a 225 with only 8 innings. So I mean, there's guys on that team besides those two, the two main guys in that rotation, that's doing really well for them. So,
oh yeah, and so that's what's helped the Astros maintain, is that they've been able to look elsewhere in their bullpen when guys like Musgrove, Fires, and McCullers have struggled, because Musgrove and Fires have Musgrove has a 5.91, Fires has a 5.40 ERA, Charlie Morton has a 4.29, Lance McCullers has a 4.34 ERA. So those 4 guys have kind of struggled on the staff, as where they could look at guys like Chris Devinsky, who has pitched 14 innings already this season, but he's able to maintain a 1.26 ERA.
Exactly. Is that everything you wanted to say about the Astros?
Yes.
My question is, and it's not going to be all the other questions that I brought up, where do you see this keep going with this team? We already know that. I mean, hell, we picked them to be the representative of the AL West in our playoff predictions. My question is, I guess I have to be a bit negative with this. If there was any way that this team, not has to slow down, but if there is a way for this team, if there is a way that you could see this team somehow slow down and just play 500 ball throughout the season, what would be the reason? And I know that seems a bit cryptic, but I just mean that, like, is there a way for this? Is there somehow, like, if somebody really does not do well, will they, I guess, implode in a way and just play really bad baseball?
Well, you could argue that, because they're 14-6, so they're 8 games above 500. And if you take away the 5 starts Dallas Keuchel had, and with a 1.22 ERA, that puts them just above 3 games. It would say theoretically they lost all 5 of those games. That only puts them at 3 games above 500. And then, so if he starts producing like he was last year and has that above 3 ERA, almost 4 ERA, then yeah. And then if you got to look at another guy too that's important to them on their lineup, Jose Altuve. It's easy, but if he isn't hitting, the next guy you got to lead on for a leadoff is Nori Aoki. And I'm not knocking Aoki. He's coming in at 354 average. But he doesn't have the kind of speed that Altuve has, who already has 7 stolen bases.
And not only that, but also if you look at their outfield real quick, you have George Springer, you have Josh Reddick.
And Jake Marisnick.
Which, again, I can't look at the depth chart because it's cryptic from Fangraphs. But anyways, if that is it, this is going to be interesting, folks. We're going into the break underneath 1 hour on this podcast, which is really exciting. We've probably finally found our groove, Phil, to finally get these games done.
Let's see how fast you can get through the NL West.
Hopefully, but then again we have to get through the beer part of our podcast.
Yes,
and
we
the
do.
Historical Showdown, which again I might just kind of graze over a little bit because it's another one to watch. It's another one that went into Game 7. So, anyways, this is Andrew Sherman and Phillip Corwin. We are going to take a break here with the MLBeers podcast. I hope that you're enjoying it at the moment, and we'll be right back in 30 seconds. And we're back, folks, for the MLBeers podcast. And now we're going to talk about our second favorite pastime, beer. And of course, today I am drinking a lovely porter from Left Hand Brewing Company. It is the Blackjack Porter. It is very nice. It has its nice malty tones. It is not, if I can take a little sip real quick, it's not as boozy as some other porters that I've had. You get that nice little smoky taste after it, and it doesn't help that I had Milanos too, so it tastes like chocolates. But
Hey, cookies and beer pair well together.
especially the darker beers, because I mean, of
Yes.
course, you're going to get that chocolate, those cocoa tastes, and all that stuff. But of course, it's not a bad beer, and porters. The difference between porters and stouts is that isn't it lighter? It's lighter on the coloring scale, just like a point something. Like they're almost a bit they're almost a bit, they're almost like twins. That's what I'm trying to say. But it's made differently, isn't that correct, Phil? I know it's made
What?
differently. Porters and stouts.
Yeah, they're brewed just a slightly different malts, different hops, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the exact science between making a porter and a stout, so you kind of catch me off guard there.
Sorry about that, because usually, it's when you go with your normal beers, your Hefeweizens or wheat beers, your IPAs, your normal pale ales, your all the, I guess, quote unquote normal stuff that you see pretty much 90% of the year, no matter where you are. That stuff. But porters and stouts is usually the ones that kind of get mixed up in a way, because like they still use roasted malts, chocolate malts, but also they use different hops to have different flavors. Like in this porter, I can definitely tell that there's hops in it, but it's not like a pale ale or an IPA where it's the definition of it. It's not hoppy. But like if you're comparing it to a stout, you definitely get a bit more of a malt taste out of the stout than a porter. But do you have an answer for me for that?
Thanks to Google, the only main difference many brewers still agree on is the kind of malt that should be used to brew each type of beer. Porters use malted barley, and stouts are primarily made from unmalted roasted barley.
Interesting. That is very interesting.
So besides that, I can talk about how I'm cheating on beer tonight.
You dirty whore.
Yes.
Wait, hold
dirty,
on.
Dirty.
Hold on 1 second. Let me shape my mouth real quick. I know that sounds weird, but you dirty whore. Give me that little Sean Connery chase to it.
Yes. Cheating on beer with lemonade and vodka tonight. But on Saturday, though, this past Saturday, I was up in Kansas City, and I was able to go to Crane Brewing in Raytown.
Ooh!
Which
should have got some pictures of that for the podcast, my friend.
Yeah, I was a little inebriated when I was there. So
it happens. It happens.
I was able to have a friend of mine. He won a home brewing contest, and the prize was that Crane would scale up his recipe.
That
and he was
is pretty cool. But keep on going.
It was called Junipucker. It was a tart saison, which I can tell you was really, really good.
It
and
sounds
be
really
looking out.
Good.
Be the lookout for him. His name's Alex. He does a lot of home brewing competitions, and that's the first beer I've had from him, but I liked it a lot.
Nice. So that's pretty cool. And what's his favorite beer to make, or does he not have a favorite so he can focus on other
I'm
beers that he can
pretty
make?
sure from the conversations we had, from what I remember, he does a really good stout.
Ooh. I do like stouts. I'm not, of course, a connoisseur on stouts. Of course, I keep on if I can talk today, I keep on talking about it every podcast. But of course, my first beer was a wheat beer, which was really lovely. But I still like stouts, and I actually thought about making a stout as my second beer. But it might be a saison because it's getting that time of the
It's that
year
time of
for it,
year. It's that time of year for something.
and especially since everybody is posting their Boulevard Zon pictures, and
Yep.
I'm just like,
Did it get
why?
distributed down to? Did that make it its way down to Springfield?
Yes, but I didn't make it to my knowledge at the moment. It's either not here or it's not at the closest Brown Derby to my house. But then again, that's more of your quick quick stop. There's a little bit of a little craft section, but not much. I'll probably have to head down to either the International Wine and Spirits, which is a big place in Springfield by Brown Derby, or just head to the college and get it. But I am definitely ready for that because I truly miss it, and that's kind of, it's gonna be, if that's gonna be my second beer, even though it is not a saison, a wit beer that is correctly made. And I have to say that I do not like Blue Moons because tasting a nice seasonal wit beer is much better than a year round wit beer, if that makes sense. And it's not that I hate Blue Moon because,
It's okay to say that you hate Blue Moon. It's okay.
well,
This is a safe place.
yeah, true. I dislike it because, like, every time I have it, there's different tastes, and of course, if you make year rounds, you're gonna have different tasting batches of of beer. Different bottles will have different tastes or different cans. But like for some odd reason, when you have a nice, lovely wit beer, and of course from the KC area, I have to represent Boulevard, and I believe that there is a wit beer at. Oh yeah, it is a pomegranate. I believe it's a pomegranate wit beer that Mother's made last year that I really really enjoyed, because of course it was pomegranate and it was a nice lovely wit beer. And if you want to know what wit means, it means white, and it's Belgian. Well, it's could be Flemish actually, which is a mixture
I was
of
just say
French and German. So, but then again, it could be all German. But anyways, yeah, a wit beer, not a wet beer. All beers are wet. Uh, but a wit beer is it's a really nice beer, and I really enjoyed those very, very much. And it's time for me to get a Zon, and also maybe buy some of buy a glass by Boulevard. But I digress. So anyway, the other article, which actually Phil knows about, and you know what? I'll let you take it away for this article since you know about it.
what I was talking about is Tony Gwynn's son. It's actually, he had his time with the Padres, right?
With many other teams too, especially with
Yes.
Phillies.
Yes. But he's actually brewing a beer with Alesmith out of San Diego. And they're the ones that brew the 394 Pale Ale, which is Tony Gwynn's Jr.'s father's highest batting average. And, he's kind of he wants to follow in the footsteps of learning how to brew beer. And, it's just a baseball and beer article, so there's no way we weren't going to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But what Jr. is brewing is a session IPA. In which people, if you don't know what a session IPA is, it's something that's typical IPA is around 5 to 7 or 8%. Sessions are anywhere between 4.
Yeah, 4 to 5 or 4 to 6, something of that
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah.
It's a lighter, I guess, alcoholic
Yes,
beverage.
but it's going to give you the full flavor. If you think about a really popular session IPA, look at Founders all day.
Hmm. That is a really good beer, and Founders is all the way up in Michigan, if I'm correct.
Yes, sir.
Um, but the interesting thing that you did not bring up, unless you were going to keep on talking about it with this article,
No, you go for it.
is that two things: a man that loves normal beer, that loves Budweiser beers, loves Coors, loves Millers, can enjoy a craft beer. And it was specifically it was stated in the article that when Tony Gwynn actually tried out a beer, and I'll explain why he was trying out beers after this. He goes, I can't believe I've been drinking Coors Light for my whole life and have not tried these. So anybody can enjoy a craft beer. You just have to figure out you have to start out light, of course, and of course he was trying out different beers for his beer. But he was just really surprised that these beers had a lot of flavor and he was enjoying it. So anybody can enjoy a delicious craft beer or just well, hell, I say it's more of a normal beer than anything else because that's how it usually is. But the second thing, which leads to the first thing, is the reason why Tony Gwynn wanted to start to make his own beer is because when he was elected into the Hall of Fame back in the early 2000s, they always have a Hall of Fame dinner with all the living Hall of Famers. And Tom Seaver, former great pitcher with the New York Mets and another team, and the Chicago White Sox, most famous for being on the Mets, actually owned a winery, and every year to that dinner he would bring a case full of his wine and give it out to people, but he would never give it to anybody that had a better batting average against him. So Tony Gwynn never got to try his wine because of that. So it was kind of the rebuttal to Seaver that Tony Gwynn was making this beer. But sadly enough, Tony Gwynn never got to see the light of day of this beer because when he was starting to make this beer was in 2014, which that was the year that he passed away. So that is the incredible story about this beer and how, first of all, you can love craft beer even though you've had Coors Light or Budweiser all your life, but also that, baseball and beer just go together like peanut butter and jelly. And I think a lot of people kind of miss that if any type of beer, you kind of miss that when you go to the games. Of course, you're going to have a beer and watch baseball, but something that is great, like having Boulevard as the official beer sponsor of the Kansas City Royals and seeing all, pretty much pasted everywhere Boulevard signs in Kauffman Stadium, or seeing, you have Miller Park up in Milwaukee, or you have Busch Stadium in St. Louis, and you have Coors Field. Yeah, even though those are big companies, but they still represent their home team, their home city with those beers. And that's what I really enjoyed about this article, is that it's just that beer and baseball go together, and this is probably the best article I've ever read that ties those two together.
Yes, no, it was really well written. I enjoyed a lot of it, and I kind of forgot about the Tom Seaver owning his own winery, but yeah, no, it's just too bad that I'm pretty sure in there didn't Tony Gwynn's wife bring a bunch of cases to the next Hall of Fame banquet.
Yes, that is correct. So even though he didn't,
it made it there.
Yeah, so even though he did not get to have the final product, in a way, all the Hall of Famers got to taste his product and what he, what he enjoyed, what he loved about making beer. So, oh man, talking too much, you're gonna get some phlegm in you. But anyways, that is the beer segment of it all, and I'm still wanting those questions, from the fans, from the listeners, but it's gonna happen one of these days. It's gonna happen one of these days. But anyways, of course, the third part is the MLBeers historical showdown, which the fans take on the hosts for prizes. And again, for the third time in a row, the hosts beat the fans in another 7-game series, going into extras in the seventh game. The 1929 Philadelphia Athletics beat the 1986 New York Mets, not the Miracle Mets. That's the 69 team. But it was just really interesting to see how everything happened, and I think I still have I still have a little bit of my notes real quick. I'll just say a couple things. Gary Carter is the only Met from that team to be in the Hall of Fame. He was voted in by the writers in 2003, which was really interesting because then you have Keith Hernandez has a 290 plus average, and he's hit over 2,000 hits and was a really great defensive player, but he's not in the Hall of Fame. And then, but then again, that's, if you look at all of it, that's Davey Johnson's only title. The manager of the Mets during that time was the only title. And for the Philadelphia Athletics, they had five. Let's get that right. 5 Hall of Famers. They had outfielder Al Simmons, Mickey Conrad, Cochran, then first baseman Jimmy Fox, and pitcher Lefty Grove. And of course, if you know about the Philadelphia Athletics from the inception of since the inception of the team in the American League from 1901 through the 50s, pretty much until they went to Kansas City, Connie Mack was the player manager / owner of that team, and he is the only guy. He's number 1 on the all-time win list as for managers. And the interesting thing about it is that he has a .481 win-loss percentage career lifetime. So that was like the interesting thing when I saw that. And of course, and again, what were you gonna say, Phil?
It's just. No, I'm just looking at their baseball reference. It's just astonishing to see that you see Lefty Grove, their leading starting pitcher, start 37 games, play in 42, and pitch 275 innings.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's how it was back in the day. And so, I mean, Walter, if we go back to the 1924 Washington Senators that we had, Walter Johnson was the same way. He had plus 230 innings pitched.
They have 4 guys on their pitching staff who pitched 250 plus innings.
There you go. I mean, and that pitching staff was really good. From what I remember, because I don't have everything on my notes. But anyways, I need to wrap this thing up real quick so we can talk about the NL West. Really, in all honesty, I'm not going to say this one was better than the last one where it was the Pirates versus the oh my god. I forgot who we were playing against last game. The Pirates
1906 White Sox.
The 1906 White Sox. And no, it wasn't the hold on. Why am I guessing? I'm on my computer. I can see who we played against last time. And let me go to pictures real quick because I like taking pictures. Was the 1955 Los Angeles Dodgers. Why the hell did I miss that?
That's right, because they played the Pirates last week. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about that.
White Sox was a week before that.
And I did bring up the Senators. That's probably the reason why we thought of that. But anyway, it's not as great as that one, but it is still thrilling no matter what. So, again, that was game 4 of the series, and I don't know what we're gonna do for next week. I don't, because we'll discuss it. We'll discuss that off the recording. But anyway, that is the game 4 of the historical showdown, and the hosts win again, 3-4, taking the series in extras. So, the 1929 Philadelphia Athletics. I'll think of something else. I think I want to switch it up for this upcoming week, but then again, I digress. So anyway, if I can get through this, we are now talking about the NL West with your teams of the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Los Angeles Dodgers, San Francisco Giants, San Diego Padres, and the Colorado Rockies. So, first of all, like we brought up earlier in the podcast, that it was really, really interesting to see that the San Francisco Giants and the Los Angeles Dodgers were not 1 and 2. Not saying respectively, because I have my own feelings about the Giants. But anyways, so what is happening? Let's go down the standings real quick. The Rockies are 14-7. The Diamondbacks are 14-8, which they're a half a game back. The Los Angeles Dodgers are 10-11 with 4 games back. The Padres, expecting to be in the cellar, just half a game outside of that. They are 8-14 with a 6.5 games back. And, of course, the San Francisco Giants, the team that I'm going to talk about first, going 7-14, and they are 7 games back from the division leader, Colorado Rockies. So, anyways, this past week they went 1-5, losing the last game to the Royals, which I believe that game was the Bumgarner game, right?
Who, the Giants?
Yes.
Yes, it was the first time Bumgarner's been back in the stadium since that Game 7.
Uh-huh.
But, yeah, no, they beat him 2-0. Jason Vargas was out there carving him up, though.
Yeah, and I'll get to the team in a moment, but they lose that game, they split the series, and then they get swept by the Rockies, and then split the away series against the Dodgers, which I believe is in a 4-game series at the moment. No, it is a 4-game series at home, but they've split it so far, going 1-1 in the 4-game series. Their notable injuries, of course, we brought up Mr. Madison Bumgarner on the 10-day DL with rib and shoulder injury. Denard Span is on the 10-day DL with a clavicle joint sprain, which is really
can we talk about how Bumgarner's injury was occurred from a non-baseball activity?
Oh, yeah. I still don't know why they don't have these in their contracts. But if you don't know how Mr. Madison Bumgarner got injured, he got injured in a dirt bike incident. Just think about that.
When you're the top pitcher in the Giants, the thing you want to be doing at the beginning of the season is riding dirt bikes.
Exactly. Or jumping on trampolines, or as one NFL player was messing with fireworks and have your hand blown off, pretty much. I mean, hey, we gotta have fun.
Either way you want to play it.
Yeah, exactly. Or Trevor Bauer in the World Series. Oh, gotta mess with a drone. Thumb gets sliced. Really, guys? Come on, folks. You gotta be smarter than this. But then again, they have all the millions and I don't. So
yeah, we don't. We're good armchair managers here.
Exactly, and I love being an armchair manager. But anyways, for this week though, this past week, they went 226, 276, and a 292 slash line, which actually is really bad because it's 22nd, 25th, and 29th in the rankings. And this is by the week. This is not through the whole season yet. But anyways, they had a 6.2 walk percentage. They had a 17.5 K percentage, which was actually third, which I'm really surprised. A .067 isolated power, which was last in the MLB for the week, and a 286 BABIP, which is 19th. But that's just the batting. The pitching is more dismal in a way. A 5.58 ERA, which is 26, a 4.18 FIP, which is 17th, a 6.84 K per 9, which is 25th, a 3.08 walk per 9, which is 10th. Their 309 opponents BABIP, which is 23rd, and a 65% left on base, which is 28th. And now, really looking at it right here, looking at their team, the only guy that, has done well for them has been Hunter Pence, as seen here, hitting a 308, 368, and a 397 with a BABIP of 377. But, of course, he's not your typical home run hitter, so, he has one, and his isolated power is 90. But when you look at everybody else, you're supposed to expect Crawford to do well, which Crawford is actually now on the bereavement list, if I remember correctly. Isn't that for, I know it's death in the family, so
yeah,
he's going to be out for how many days? But he's going to be a missed part for those couple days, because even though he is hitting 263 and a 284 on base percentage, he can still slug with a 434 and an isolated power of 171. But then again, his strikeout rate is a 14.8. Of course, it's not the highest out of this team, but it is pretty close. But everybody else, Joe Panic is hitting a 328. Buster Posey is hitting a 353. And Buster Posey is actually coming back, and he's doing well. He's only been in for 15 games, just got off the DL, and he's only had 58 plate appearances. But why is this team doing so bad when you have names like that and having, good numbers? It's all about the pitching.
Yeah. Looking at Jeff Samardzija alone in his 4 starts has a 7.40 ERA. And he's a guy they went out and got.
Exactly. And then you have Johnny Cueto, which he was kind of lights out last year, has not done as what he's supposed to do. He has a 4.61 ERA and, has an opponent's BABIP of 275, but he has a again, I prefer K per 9 than K percentage, but it also gives you a tell that he throws strikes, and he throws, a little higher than normal, well, actually average for this team of walk rate of 6.8. But, that's not good. You have Matt Cain that has gone 22 innings and has a ERA of 2.42, but then you have Matt Moore, which he's thrown a 5.87. You have Tyler Blatch that is thrown a 4.22, and then you have to add Madison Bumgarner, and then you're like, why do we have to add Madison Bumgarner? Well, he's going to be out for a while. So that's going to be a difference maker, because Blatch is pretty much the guy that replaced him, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to do well. Of course, he's only had one start, in 8 games, but besides that, I don't think really it's just been an off year for this team. And then again, if you look at the other names besides man, I am having trouble now. But if you look at other names like Aaron Hill, Jared Parker, Connor Gillespie, those guys that really made the name for themselves for the past 2 years, even Denard Span, those guys are just doing abysmal work.
Yes, and another bright spot besides Hunter Pence and Buster Posey is Joe Panic.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming in at 328 batting average, but besides, it goes Buster Posey, Joe Panic, Hunter Pence, and then the next best guy, granted he only has 8 plate appearances, is Madison Bumgarner, who leads his second in the team in home runs. and a 286 batting average.
Yeah, and it just for this team, it doesn't seem like it's working any other way, and I can't explain because it's pretty much the same team as last year. Maybe one or two, changes, and I guess another thing too to really say, I shouldn't put all the pitching problems on the starting pitching, but you also have to look at, if I can get through it, look at the relieving core. You had Mark Melanson, even though he has a 3.18 ERA as a reliever, he's thrown better when he was with the Pirates and the Nationals. You have Neil Ramirez, though, that's throwing a 9.72 ERA. And then George Contos with a 5.14 and Steve Okert having a 2.45, which really he's the one that's doing the best job, even though you have Corey Jehern, if I'm saying that correctly, having a 0 ERA, but he also gives up a lot of walks, a 22.2, evening that out with another 22.2 K rate. I guess the only really bright spot out of this, though, is you have to look at Chris Stratton. Of course, he has a 0 ERA, but he has a 30% K rate with a 10% walk rate, and he has a 100% left on base percentage. So I tried to look at the positives out of this team, and I just don't. I'm just flabbergasted in a way because the Giants are falling off in a way that we're not expecting to see. So that's just me.
Oh no, yeah. This wasn't expected coming into the season. You expected guys like Bumgarner, Samardzija, Kane, and Cueto be able to give you a really solid 1 through 4, and Matt Moore just kind of being that typical fifth starter. And none of those guys outside of Bumgarner and Kane are really producing.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, Bumgarner's gone, so for who knows how long at this point. So, though, I think they'll be scraping the bottom of the cellar for a little bit.
I do agree with that also. But that is it for the San Francisco Giants. Do you have any questions for me about this team?
I don't. We pretty much covered it.
Pretty much covered it. And I don't see, right now it's going to be up in the air to see if they will get out of that. I think they will get out of the cellar, but it will be up in the air if they actually make a charge to a wild card spot, which again, I don't have them in the playoffs, but you do. So if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I did. So hopefully they'll just pick it up from my predictions, and I can just be a little baseball savant.
There you go. So anyway, now to the fourth team in the standings, the San Diego Padres, which is really still surprising, though, seeing that they are fourth in the standings and not fifth. But then again, they're only a half game ahead of the San Francisco Giants. But anyways, if I can get through this without coughing so much, they went 3 or 4 last week, winning both games against the D-backs earlier in the week. Lost the series to the Marlins 2-1. Well, it should be 1-2. And then losing the first 2 games in the 4-game series against the D-backs. So, notable injuries, Travis Janikowski, he's on the 10-day DL. Did not really say what his injury was, but that was a couple days ago. So anyways, their batting ranking for this past week, they were swinging a 236, a 274, and a 386 slash line, which is 17th, 26th, and 17th, respectively. Then you had a walk rate of 5.2, which was 29th, a strikeout rate, which was 31.2, which is dead last, actually, in the MLB, a 150 isolated power, which is 18th, and if you guys don't know that isolated power 150 is your average. And then, of course, their BABIP being a 311, which is 9th in the league. But pitching-wise, they have an ERA of 4.71, which is 22nd, a 3.72 FIP, which is 10th, a 8.57 K per 9, which is 12th, which is really interesting to see, because they're doing so much better than the San Francisco Giants, even though they don't really have the pitching staff. Then they have a 1.71 walk per 9, which is first, which I think the closest one is 3 walks per 9. Again, really, really interesting. An opponent's BABIP of 300, which is 20th, and then a 69.8% left on base percentage. Ugh. So anyway, for this team, though, really, really looking at it, their only bright spot on the hitting side that, has really good average that isn't a pitcher is really Will Myers. He hit the cycle I think it was 2 weeks ago, I believe. But his slash line is 330, 347, and his 604, leading the team with home runs with 5. He's stolen 1 base, but
Austin Hedges has 6 home runs.
Lies. Well, he actually does. But again, Austin Hedges, I mean, yes,
he's only hitting a 175 and 232 on base. So no, he's not their top hitter, but
yeah. But I think you can have, I mean, we've talked about this many times. Again, you can have your home run hitter do so well, but have a really crappy batting average.
But 175 isn't going to cut it, though.
Exactly, for really any team. But anyways, just Will Meyer has just really outshined all of the young up-and-comers with this Padres team. Of course, Yver Solarte, Manuel Margot, Hunter Renfroe, Ryan Schimpf, even Austin Hedges. Those guys are just, they're coming up and they're supposed to do so well, but then, they're hitting 172, Renfroe hitting 244. Margot, even though he is hitting a 278, he's supposed to do better. Solarte hitting a 296, but besides, with that, they're a team that I just don't expect to see I just don't expect them to be 4th, even though, like I said, they're doing well. I like to get ahead of myself and just say random things and not really look at the stats. But anyway, they are a good team, but, when you have Will Meyer that's really becoming this leader of the team, and he's only 26, and Solarte's 29, Ryan Schimpf is 29, of course, Eric Ibar, which he's just another guy that's hitting 190, I think he was an old second baseman now. He's just, 33 years old. He's just not doing what he's supposed to do. But, what's really the difference maker with this team is really, it's all about on the pitching side. And if you're looking at all these starters, the top 5, if you do games started with Julio Shashin, Clayton Richardson, Richards, Trevor Cahill, Jared Weaver, and Luis Perdomo, they're not doing so well. I mean, you have Shashin going 5.9. Then you have Richards going, Richard going 445, Trevor Cahill going 457, and Luis Perdomo going 697. But also Jared Weaver is just almost to the 4 mark. He has a 391. But really, I guess the guy that you should be looking at is Jared Cozart. That's currently has an ERA of 3.24, but he's only thrown 8 innings.
He's thrown 8 innings in 2 starts.
So,
and their staff ERA is a 4.49.
Mm-hmm.
Their relief pitching staff is as a whole is a 5.81.
Exactly. And hell, I didn't even know this until I read it, that Eric Ibar is actually
He's a shortstop.
He's a shortstop, but he's also pitched for them too, as seen here for some odd reason.
And he did. He pitched one third of an inning.
And he got out of it. So I mean, hey, that's a good thing, right?
And they did outright Christian Bethencourt, their little catcher converted pitcher. That experiment only lasted 3 2/3 innings with a 14.73 ERA, and he ended up batting 143, no home runs, no walks, struck out 42.9% of the time.
Yep, that's gonna happen. You can't win every experiment, or they wouldn't be called experiments, right? But
right.
Out of this team, though, besides me overlooking things before I actually say things, this team is just a team that we shouldn't expect them. We should expect them to be at the bottom, but not expect them to be fourth. We should see them being 8-14, but of course we should see the Giants at 10-10 or whatever, 10-11 or 11-10. But I digress. But anyway,
so
yeah.
My question to you is: right now their playoff percentage is sitting at a 0.0%. Do you see the Padres being able to raise that at all?
That is a very good question. If they keep this is the only way that I could see this. If one of the top 3 teams just completely just drops the ball, and just go in, under 500. The Giants keep on playing the same way, and the Padres somehow play 500 ball. I could see that, but that's a lot of variables being in play, and those variables have to be correctly done.
So
I just don't see it.
I'll give you an over/under.
Okay.
Over or under 7%?
Under. There's just no way, because even though the Giants are at 20.8 at the moment, it's just hard for me to see them going over 7 unless they really just crush the ball, but I just don't see that. So anyways, on to the third team, the middle team of the standings, the lovely Los Angeles Dodgers of Los Angeles, going 10-11 in the standings, and of course 4 games behind the Rockies. But this past week they went 3-3, went 500. They win the last game of the winning the last game in the Rocky series earlier in the week, losing their next series against the D-backs, going 1-2, and then splitting the first 2 games in the 4-game series with the Giants. Notable injuries, which I was really surprised by how many injuries there are. But Jock Peterson is injured with a groin injury, 10-day. Rich Hill, blisters on his throwing hand.
And apparently blisters with Rich Hill has been a problem, which I didn't know about until I read about his latest injury. And then they had a couple articles listed how he's had problems with blisters.
Yes, it is a reoccurring theme with Rich Hill. Then you have Logan Forsythe out for 10 days for a toe injury. And then Grant Dayton, which I really wouldn't talk about because he's more of a middle reliever. He's kind of your, if I can think who, it would be like a Chris Young, I guess, for the Royals, or a Kevin, or Tyler Lyons for the Cardinals.
But he's looking like a better of those two with 6 innings pitched and a 0 ERA.
Yes. And that's why it's so important, because you think of him as that, but he's doing so much better. And right now he's on the 10-day DL with an intercostal strain.
I don't know What is that?
I don't know, and I don't want to look it up because I'm not hating on people that are injured because they need to heal properly. Especially for the Dodgers, they need to heal properly. Guess it sounds like you're looking that up at the moment.
Yes, I was too interested. It's a several group of muscles that run between the ribs that help form and move the chest wall.
So it sounds like he's losing his breath in a way. Because
Yeah, and
if he can't move his chest, then
it sounds like an important set of muscles.
well, all muscles are important. But yes, you are correct though. But anyway, let me do some pressing some buttons real quick. Anyway, their batting this week was 240, 310, 393 slash line, a 8.7 walk rate, a 18.8 K rate, a 153 isolated power with a 280 BABIP. Of course, looking at those numbers, those are pretty much right in the middle of your average numbers right there in the ranking. Pitching wise, they have a 5.29 ERA. This is as past week. This is not saying the team as a whole throughout the whole season. But a 3.36 FIP, a 9.18 K per 9, and a 3.18 walks per 9, a 3.42 opponent's BABIP, and a 66.1 left on base percentage. And going back to that ERA real quick to show you that it's really different from the week 2 now, they have a 3.52 ERA. And of course, just barely, if I can get this correctly, just barely, I guess, beating him out is Brandon McCarthy owning it with a 225, while Clayton Kershaw has a 229. But
and the downside of that is Kente Maheda.
Yeah, Kenta Maeda.
Yeah, coming in with an 805.
Which is very unlikely from him because he's always been a good pitcher when he was even in Japan. So that's of course been really different. He's been having a little bit of I believe it was control issues that I've read and seen from game footage. Again, but also if you look at the team too, why is this team being average when you're looking at the pitching? Because if you look at their ERAs, even Rich Hill, even though he has a blister on his throwing hand, he's having a 3.38. Alex Wood is a 2.55, and he's finally getting in some starts a little bit. He's usually kind of your mid-reliever, almost there to the starting rotation, but with injuries happening, it's being shown. The only guy besides Maeda having a high ERA is Hyunjin Ryu, and I hope I said that properly, has a 4.64, but then again, if you look at his injuries in the past, that's pretty dang good because he came back last year for 3 games, and he was abysmal. But besides that, Brandon McCarthy and Clayton Kershaw are doing well. Then looking at their if I can talk, looking at their relief corps, Pedro Baez, zeros. Luis Avian, a 3.38, even though he has only thrown 5 1/3 inning. Grant Dayton, which we already talked about, 6 1/3 inning, having a 0 ERA. But Sergio Romo having an 8.59 is really, really typical from him because he's only a slider pitcher, and that's all he can do is just throw sliders. Besides that, then you have Chris Hatcher, which he's throwing a 3.86. But you look at that lovely K rate of 28% and that walk rate of 6. Then you have Josh Fields, no ERA through 5.1, and then of course our man,
a really high strikeout rate with 52.4%.
Yes, I forgot to mention that, and of course Mr. 4-year $80 man Kenley Jansen with a 2.5 ERA, throwing 34.5 pitches that are strikeouts.
And 0 walks.
And 0 walks, yeah, which is really, really interesting. And another really interesting thing is I can't believe they still have it up, but there is a player that has played one game with no name.
Yes.
And I told you it was going to be there, and it happened.
Who are you?
Who are you? What is that off of? Besides the Who Are You song, it seems like it's on the tip of my tongue, but I guess I don't remember.
CSI Miami.
Oh God, don't start don't start that, because there's a funny joke with that with family. But anyways. Of course, your hitting is led by Mr. Corey Seager, NL Rookie of the Year last year. He's still hitting a 316, 389, and a 506 slash line with a BABIP of 386 and an ISO of 190. Of course, he has a walk rate of 11.1, but he's doubling that with a strikeout rate. But okay, then who's really, I guess, the culprit being with this team doing so bad? Okay, you have Yasiel Puig. First of all, he's hitting 4 home runs, which I believe is the highest on the team. Yes, it
and
is.
like a 242 average.
Yeah, 243. Yeah, I have 253 on mine, but then again, we've always been having problems for some odd reason today. But he does have a nice high walk rate and a
low strikeout rate.
A low strikeout rate, which is good, but I mean, you should expect a little bit more from this guy, especially, he has a nice on base percentage at a 348 with a slugging percentage of 453.
So, are you thinking this is the Puig we're going to see from here on out?
I think this is going to be the Puig that we see this year and probably in the future, because he's going to be your average guy. Yeah, he had that nice year where he was, really crushing it, but now I think the hype is over with Puig, and now it's just dying off in the embers. So I see him going average, probably 270, somewhere around there. He's going to keep a job, but
and good amount of home runs.
Exactly.
And a strong throwing arm out of right field.
Exactly. But then you look at, okay, besides that, so we talked about the shortstop and the right fielder. You have Justin Turner, another guy that they had to re-sign for, I believe, the 5-year deal. But he's doing well. A low strikeout rate and a low walk rate. He's hitting a 356 with a 427 and a 479 on base and slugging with a BABIP of 394. But then you go to Adrian Gonzalez. Even though he has a 310 BABIP, his batting average is a 261. And you expect him to hit some home runs, of course. He's their first baseman, but he isn't. He doesn't have any home runs at all. Then you look at Yasmani Grandal, a guy that has 3 home runs, tied for third or second with the team, but he's hitting 211. Jock Peterson, 220, hitting 220. Andrew Tolles, 204. Yeah, you have Logan Forsythe hitting 295, but that's really it from this team that I consider to watch, because, of course, you have Kike Hernandez only having 38 plate appearances and a 265, but that's not over 50 plus where he's played more games. I mean, Kike Hernandez has played more games than Forsythe, but you also have to look at what they've done, and it just seems from the team they haven't done enough for them.
No, with the team coming in at a 243 total batting average, 331 on base, 390 slugging, just above average with a 101 WRC plus. They're moderate to good starting pitching. They're, again, good bullpen. Just isn't being able to, I guess, pick up the slack that the offense is leaving them.
Exactly. And if you look at the games real quick, I wish I could see what's going on with this game. I mean, right now, the game that they're playing against the Dodgers, it's up 1-0 in the sixth. Corey Seager with another home run, so expect that to change pretty soon. But all these games that I've seen so far from this team is that they've been somewhat close. Let me do some.
I would say the last two games they either lost or won 2-1, and
Yeah, exactly.
they have a lot of 1-2 run games,
Mm-hmm.
but they also have 1, 2, 3 double-digit scoring games.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and I mean, like right now, last night, 2-1 against the Giants. The day before that, 1-2 against the Giants. The D-backs against the D-backs that they won 6-2, but then they lost 5-11.
and then the game before that they lost
Yeah,
5-13.
So I'm not saying it's mediocre. Well, it is mediocre offense at the moment. But then again, when you look at the Diamondbacks compared to the Dodgers, it's a different story. So, and no, I'm not trying to make that as a segue to the Rockies with Trevor Story. So, no segue yet. So anyway, do you have any questions for me about this team?
No, I asked my question about Puig. That's what I was really just interested about, just kind of see if this is going to be the Puig we're going to see from here on out.
Okay, gotcha. So anyway, like I said, we're not going to be talking about the Rockies just yet because the Rockies are half a game ahead of this team, the Arizona Diamondbacks, which I thought they were going to be the fourth place team instead of the San Diego Padres. So anyway, with the Arizona Diamondbacks, this past week they went 4-3. They lost the last two games in the series against the Padres, then winning the series against the Dodgers 2-1, and then winning the first two games of a 4-game series against the Padres. The notable injuries is just only one, which is Shelby Miller, which he, of course, is on the 10-day. I think if we're just gonna say injuries, we're automatically gonna think of 10-day because everybody's on the 10-day.
Just assume the 10-day unless we state otherwise.
Exactly, and that is a forearm injury. But anyways, with the Diamondbacks, this past week they had a .303 batting average with a .352 on base percentage and a .512 slugging, which is third, fifth, and third in the MLB this past week. A 6.7 walk percentage, a 23.6 strikeout percentage, a 209 isolated power, and a 372 BABIP, which is 6-1 respectively. On the pitching side, they were 4.28 ERA with a 3.66 FIP, a 9.89 Ks per nine, and a 2.21 walks per nine. An opponent's BABIP of 3.14 and a left on base percentage of 74.2. So, with this team, if I can get through this, with this, what were you gonna say?
I was just saying with this team, they have 1, 2, 3 guys hitting 4 home runs. They have a team total of 24 and 25 stolen bases.
Mm-hmm.
It's just and a 277 average. So the team's just raking right now.
Not only that, you bring that up, but not only that, you also have to look at their batting averages too. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I mean 7 guys with plus 70 plus plate appearances that are over 300 batting average, and then their slugging is just phenomenal. I mean, it's a 270 right now. They're at a 277, 339, and a 443 slash line throughout the majors. Of course, if you looked at all that stuff real quick, the only team that's above the Diamondbacks in average and on base percentage is the Red Sox, and we're not even talking about that team. But slugging, of course, I believe they are the only one. No, they do not have the most. That will be the Brewers, of course, with Eric Thames. But the Diamondbacks are, what we should expect from the Dodgers and the Giants. Everybody's all cylinders are going. Everybody pumping out all these home runs. Like you said, there's 4 guys hitting 4 home runs. If you said that correctly?
3 guys hitting 4, 1 guy hitting 3.
There. So, I mean,
But
Paul Goldschmidt, of course, Jake Lamb, David Peralta with the 3, and Yasmani Tomas with the other 4.
With the Diamondbacks, I think they're kind of a team that you kind of forget about having guys like Goldschmidt, Peralta, Lamb, Tomas, Pollock.
Mm.
They're out in Arizona. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I just kind of forget about those guys being on that team.
Well, I guess it's the East Coast bias in a way, because remember besides Fox Sports, you have ESPN that's out on the East Coast, and all the major writers are out on the East Coast. And so you kind of forget how these teams are doing. Of course, it's like with college basketball, you don't think about the teams out in the West and because they're the late games and nobody's going to watch them. But with this team, it's just hard to see, with the batting doing so well, why is this still going? And then you got to look at the pitching too. Greinke is finally under 3. For the first time being a Diamondback with a 293 average. Patrick Corbin is just over the 3 mark with a 310. Taijuan Walker is a little bit higher than expected with a 457, but he could come down lower. Then you have Shelby Miller just recently going on the DL, having a 409, which, that's kind of, expected from Shelby Miller. But then Robbie Ray, everybody's been talking about Robbie Ray this past week. Right now having a 3.42 ERA, but his K rate is a 29.7. Yeah, he does have a little bit higher walk rate at a 13.9, but that's your 5th guy. But then if you look everybody else, it's kind of like it's in numerical order. You have Greinke up at top, being the being the ace, having a 4.8. Then Patrick Corbin with a 6.9. Then Taijuan Walker having a 7.2. Then Shelby Miller having the 12.1. And these are coming from your guys, from your starting rotation. And there's only, out of the starting rotation with the 5 guys named, only one is not reaching over the 20% mark with the strikeout rate, and that's Patrick Corbin with an 18.5. So
there's just a lot of things going right for this team right now.
Exactly. And then you can look at this team on the relieving side, not so much with, of course, Severino Brancho, if I'm saying that, Brancho, with a nice 20.25
but
ERA.
He has 1 1/3 inning pitched.
And he's also young, too. Look at that age, 24.
24.
But then you have, of course...
You have Archie Bradley coming in with 11 innings, a .79 ERA in 5 games. Granted, he looks like he's more the long relief guy, but...
But this team is just hitting all cylinders, and of course, having a team like that, having a team that could rake, and also your starting pitching to do so well. Really, you don't need that. Need your relief corps to be like the Royals in 15, or you could say the Yankees in 16 when they had Patentis, Miller, and Chapman. But anyway, if you look at their past games, yesterday they won 9-3. They won yesterday 7-6. They lost on Sunday against the Dodgers 2-6. But then against the Dodgers from Saturday and Friday, on Friday 13-5, 11-5 on Saturday. So this team could rake, and it's pretty astonishing that we're seeing this out of this team that's finally coming through. And the funny thing about it too is that Dave Stewart, the GM of the team, yes, the GM of the team was like, "Yep, I knew this was going to happen. I made all the moves." Like, totally, you're kind of copping out, but I mean, you are the guy that does make the player moves in a way. Ugh. So, I mean, do you have any questions for me about the Arizona Diamondbacks?
Well, just more or less the kind of question you asked me: how will they maintain?
Will they maintain? And of course, the game of baseball, you're always never going to have the same outcomes throughout the rest of the year. There's always ebbs and flows. But this team, I have to say no, because the next team, if that's your only question,
Yes.
I have to say no because I have to stick to my guns. And sometimes you have to do that as a as a I guess as a podcast host, you have to stick to your guns from time to time. And I'm going to say no only because the team that is number 1 right now in the standings is the Rockies. And let me take a little drink real quick. And let me explain why these two teams right now are the anomalies to the West, because I mean nobody was expecting this out of the West. And actually, I do have this past week's rankings. Of course, I was talking about those. So of course, the first thing I talk about was the slash line. 303, 352, and 512 slash line for the D-backs. But then you look at the Rockies with a 325, 373, and a 597, almost hitting 600 on that slugging, which goes 1-3-1 in the rankings. And looking at everything else in the rankings too, it's all a toss-up. Besides the K rate, which the Rockies have a K rate of 18 to the D-backs 23.6, which is 4-24, but everything else is close. And I mean, top 10, going on the pitching side, you can't forget about pitching. They have a 4.28 ERA for the D-backs, but then you have a 4.58 for the Rockies. But putting them in a ranking system, D-backs are 18th, Rockies are 20th. And then you have a FIP of 366 for the D-backs and a 404 for the Rockies, which is 8-14. Besides all of those being close, I mean, of course you're going to have those one outliers, the ones that are, far-fetched or odd in a way, is, of course, the K per 9. The D-backs have a 9.89, while the Rockies have a 5.43, which is actually the lowest in the MLB this past week.
But, you're looking at guys, you're thinking, they're playing half their games at Coors Field.
But you can also say that the Diamondbacks are playing half their games at Chase Field, which is more of a hitters-friendly ballpark, and it's even showing now why it's a hitter-friendly ballpark. But
right.
I wish I will do this real quick. I'm going to look at the comparisons real quick between the both teams. So, of course, I'm going by plate appearances, and the first let's put them together. So we have Paul Goldschmidt versus Charlie Blackmon. Both Goldschmidt has 96 plate appearances, Blackmon has 97. We have a slash line of a 312, 448, and 545 with Paul Goldschmidt. But your average over here is a 291, 347, and a 640 slugging percentage. And he has 7 home runs. He's tied for the lead with Mark Reynolds.
And, Nolan Arenado's coming in there with 6 home runs and hitting 325. You got Gerardo Parra hitting 300 with 3 home runs. And then the story of last year, Trevor Story, hitting 4 home runs, but with a 182 average.
And and I could say that I'm still sticking with my guns, even though I'm looking at the numbers right here, and some of those numbers are comparable to the Arizona Diamondbacks, but the Rockies, I think, are in a different situation than the Diamondbacks. And the reason why I say that, and it's not because of who's out playing in the field, it's because of pitching. And you have to look at it as Tyler Anderson, Tyler Chatwood, Antonio Sinatella, if I can muster through it through my allergies and say it, then Kyle Freeland, and then John Gray, and then German Marquez. And if you look at these guys, I mean, they're really not. It's just they're kind of really almost the same in a way, but you don't have those names backing them up, like Zach Greinke, Taijuan Walker, Shelby Miller. I mean, John Gray is probably the only guy that has really any type of backing, but then you look at their ERAs. John Gray, he's pretty much the ace, has a 4.38. Then you have Tyler Anderson going 25 and 1/3 inning, but having an ERA of 7.11. Then Chatwood having a 4.88. Then Senatella having a 2.8, really the only one that's under 3, and then you have Kyle Freeland that has a 3.32. But also, if you really look at it real quick, look at their ages. Let's go with the Diamondbacks real quick. Greinke is 33, Patrick Corbin 27, Taijuan Walker 24, Shelby Miller 26, and Robbie Ray 25.
And the Rockies, starting with Freeland, he's 24, Gray's 25, Anderson's 27, Chatwood's 27.
And then Zenatella is 22. So, and it's, Greinke's had multiple years in the MLB. Patrick Corbin has only been in the MLB for less than 5 years, but all with the D-backs. Taijuan Walker's been in the bigs for 3 years, I believe. Shelby Miller's been in here in the bigs for 3 years. I think Walker's actually more 2. Then Robbie Ray is 2 to 3 years. Well, Anderson and Chatwood and Gray are guys that are 3 years. But Freeland, this is the first time I've ever heard this kid. German Marquez actually was one of their starters last year in the rotation, and also Adam Ottavino was also in the rotation for a little bit. And then Antonio Senatella this is his first year, and right now he's really looking like the best. And, of course, I have to stick to my guns and believe that the Colorado Rockies will do better than the Diamondbacks. But right now, I could see the Diamondbacks taking over the Rockies. But, again, sticking to my guns.
Just look at their relief pitching ERA. Their bullpen has a 3.01 ERA. Greg Holland, kind of the comeback story. 10 innings pitched, 1.80 ERA.
Yeah.
Mike Dunn, a 1.17. Carlos Estevez, a 3.12. Then Chris Rusin coming in at a 1. And then Adam
Ottavino
coming in at the 193. Scott Odeberg coming in at a 450. And Jordan Lyles coming at a 675.
Exactly.
So they got a bunch of guys. It looks like Estevez, Dunn, and Holland are their 3 main guys. Because they've each, and then I guess Ottavino and Odeberg have all pitched 10 games. And the only 2 guys that have a ERA above a 3 is Scott Odeberg and Carlos Estevez.
And also you have to look at Jake McGee too. We can't forget about him. He was the reliever for this team for the past 2 years. But then, of course, Greg Holland right now he looks like the comeback player of the year with a 1.80 ERA, throwing going 10 innings with a 28.2 K rate and a 12.8 walk rate, and a left on base percentage at the moment as an 81.8. But you could see that progress throughout the year. And again, like you said earlier, they're playing at Coors Field, and that's where half the games are. So
the good thing to see from Greg Holland right now is his ground ball rate at Coors Field is a 56.5%.
Exactly.
So he's keeping the ball down at a field where home runs tend to fly.
Exactly. But of course, right now, since we're kind of doing this late, it's not looking good for the Colorado Rockies as they're losing to the Washington Nationals 11-2 in the bottom of the 8th.
Well, I was to say, what was the score of their game yesterday, though, of that game?
15-12.
Okay, so it seems like they're pitching on both sides right now, or kind of just leaving it over the zone. That's that one game where German Marquez had his first start.
Yeah, there you go. And he's actually, a bullpen guy. But like I said last year, he was pitching for them. So what is the difference out of these two? I think experience. And if you look at, you have Blackman at 31, LeMahieu at 28, Arenado at 26, Mark Reynolds at 33, and Trevor Story at 24. And don't forget about Carlos Gonzalez, even though he is doing really poor at the moment. He is 31, and he does have a little bit of experience. And Gerardo Parra hitting 300, and he's 30. But with Paul Goldschmidt being 29, it's that being young but being experienced at the same time, and maybe the difference of the fields being higher up in elevation, really does help move that ball. But also, Paul Goldschmidt, 29, Pollock, 29, Jake Lamb, 26, Peralta, 29, Chris Owings, 24, Yasmani Tomas at 26, and who was the other man that you brought up earlier? I think it was Chris Owing at 25, and Brandon Drury is 24. So, it's all about experience here. And even though we have the older guys over with the Colorado Rockies, it seems like the older guys over here, they're pitching, of course, like I said, 33, 27, 24, 26, and 25 with their pitching from 1 through 5, and then 27, 27, 22, 24, and 25 with their starting pitching. So, I don't know what else to say. I think the Rockies have an opportunity to keep this thing going. Maybe not as the I can't think of it. Maybe not as the division winner, but at least maybe a crack at the wild card, even though I didn't select them in the wild card.
No, but if their pitching overall can keep up, and not even their pitching, their starting pitching can help lower that ERA, and their hitting stays where it's at, yeah, there's not a doubt that to where they could compete for that first wild card spot.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Do you have any questions for me about this team?
No, because I pretty much just answered my own question. I was going to ask if the starting pitching improved, how well do you think they would do?
If starting pitching improved and the hitters just kept going, I could see them really testing the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers to be the NL West champions. So, but then again, it's only 20 games in. Well, 21 or 22, depending on who your team is. But if that is that everything?
I think that's everything.
Alrighty then. So since that is everything, how did you feel about this podcast? This time?
Oh, well, the upgrade in the internet on both of our ends and the lack of disconnections was really nice this time.
Oh, yeah. Of course, we didn't talk about it in the opening, but...
No.
of course, it didn't take 4 freaking hours to do this podcast. We're barely getting it under 3, and of course, I bought myself an Ethernet cable to make sure that we wouldn't lose connection through our Skype. And did you get an Ethernet cable too, or did you?
No, I've just been running straight Wi-Fi.
Just running straight Wi-Fi, and it's sounding really well. So anyway, for us next week, we haven't really decided on what's going on. I don't know if we're going to try to go back from the east to the west again, or we're going to take a little easy, maybe take a break from this, maybe do a lighter podcast, or just take a complete break from it for next week. But of course, we'll keep you posted on that. So, I mean, unless you have anything else to say about that.
No. I think next week's episode we should we'll discuss it, but we should go out, find a couple topics and discuss them, and not really go too in depth, I guess, in any teams. Just kind of hit the headlines and do like a questionnaire show. A
questionnaire show to each other, and
yes.
Hopefully from some of the damn fans. I shouldn't say that, but I did. But anyway, if that is everything, you guys can find us on Twitter and Facebook. Twitter is at MLBeers Podcast. Same thing with Facebook. If you want to get in contact with us, of course, you can use our Twitter. But if you want to get in contact with us through an email, we have majorleaguebeers@gmail.com. If you want to get in contact with us, the hosts, mine is the Real AWS13. And Phil, what is yours?
At Philco816.
Of course, representing Kansas City proudly, right? Anything else? There's, of course, our website, which is the MLBeers.wordpress.com, which is really nice. Nothing too flashy, but it gets the point across. Of course, we have all our episodes there. We're on all our episodes there, and our Historical Showdown episodes there if you want to watch that. And of course, those are on YouTube as well. We do have a YouTube channel, just the normal MLBeers podcast. Then, if I can remember correctly, then we're on iTunes, of course. I'm pretty sure you're hearing this from iTunes. Then we have a SoundCloud, which is under my SoundCloud, but I am actually doing a full change on that right after school, after I'm done being busy, right after school gets done with. And then we are on TuneIn, which I totally forgot about, and then I checked it, and we are on there. Of course, we're the MLBeers Podcast. Everything's MLBeers Podcast unless we change it up. But I think that is all, folks. So, Phil, do you have any last words for our fans today?
Any last words? No. Hopefully, we're 20 games in. We'll see what happens in the next 20, and then we'll really see the trends in baseball, and we'll have a little bit more to talk about.
Yes, and hopefully that all these division races actually become really crazy and wild, like the NL and AL West today. So this will be it for the MLBeers podcast with your hosts Andrew Sherman and Phillip Corwin. And of course, after that little nice burp with a little taste of the Black Jack Porter from Left Hand Brewing Company in Longmont, Colorado, win or lose, there is always booze.